Hello and welcome everyone to Riot Gaming Weekly News Roundup, where we talk about the biggest news this week. My name is Alex and let's get right into it. This week started with TennoCon. It is an annual convention that is held by Digital Extremes to celebrate new upcoming content for their hit game Warframe. Warframe currently numbers at around 50 million registered players, so it is quite a big deal. During the presentation, they showcased content from their upcoming update on August 25th called Heart of Demos. Now this update follows everyone's favorite trend that the developers picked up some time ago, with adding new open world locations almost every year. In the update, the players will be able to visit one of the moons of Mars called Deimos. It will have an entire new open world for players to explore called the Cambion Drift, and it will be infested themed. The Cambion Drift looks like a huge fleshy jungle with a deep underground cave network, which the players will be able to visit and make runs into. The deeper you go, the higher is the difficulty and the rewards as well. The day and night cycle is interesting this time too, since instead of the usual sun and moon rotation, there are two giant infested worms at the opposite sides of Deimos. The two will take turns killing each other and changing the cycle. The two worms are locked in an endless struggle, where when one is killed, its blood splatters on the open world and changes the behavior of the infested units on the surface. Then, when the dead worm regenerates, it comes back to exact revenge and thus the cycle continues. The update also adds a lot of new infested units, from huge centipedes to new types and variants of heavy units. There is also a whole new juicy package of lore to uncover with this update, all related to this new faction, the Entrati family, the guys who created the Heart of Demos, which is fueling the source of the Tenno's power. In the list of new features that DE adds into the game with this update is the Helminth. So, there is an infested room in the player's orbiter, which was accessible only when your Warframe was infected in order to heal it, or if you played as Nidus, of course. Now though, this room will be always accessible and will have a mouth. Yeah, Helminth is a funny infested mouth that will devour any resources you throw at it, in exchange giving you modifications for your abilities. But the cool thing about this is that if you feed an entire Warframe to it, you will be able to take that Warframe's signature ability and apply it to any Warframe of your choice, allowing you to create sort of hybrids of your own. And we finally got to see the final product of the community Warframe project, Zaku the Broken Warframe. You see, some time ago, the developers launched a poll where the community could suggest their concepts for a new Warframe. And when the best was chosen, the developers, together with a famous community artist, worked together on bringing this Warframe into the game. Next, we have some sad news. Sony is at it again, flexing their ownership of Spider-Man and again bringing the wrath of the geek community upon themselves. So earlier this week, the official PlayStation Twitter account announced that your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man will be joining the crew in the Marvel's Avengers game as a post-launch character. The only catch is that Spider-Man will be available only to the PlayStation players. Sony and Marvel had a very rocky relationship all these years when it came to the beloved character. At one point, Sony even almost prevented us from ever finding out what happened after the Spider-Man Far From Home movie. And now Sony allowed the developers to add an entire new character with gear, abilities, etc. to the game, but only for the PlayStation version despite the game being a multi-platform project. Players are obviously upset, and it again raises the moral and ethical side of how Sony acts in everything regarding this beloved comic book character. Nevertheless, it is unlikely anything will change in this case since the law is on Sony's side, and because of the popularity of the character, they are unlikely to let go of him so easily. And finally, last week, Sony hosted a smaller online showcase of State of Play, where they focused on third-party games and smaller titles still coming to the PlayStation 4, PlayStation VR, and some more on what comes to the PlayStation 5. So here is a quick overview of the more prominent games that were at the presentation. I have a more in-depth overview of that presentation in another video on my channel. A link to it will be in the description. The presentation was opened with a deep look at the new Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. The game is a direct sequel to Crash Bandicoot Warped, and here the villains Neo Cortex and Dr. Entropy escaped their interdimensional rift where they were imprisoned, and now they are set on conquering not only their dimension but also all the others. Then we saw a short new look at the next Hitman game, where IO showed us a gameplay segment announcing that the entire world of Assassination Trilogy will now have PlayStation VR support. Next, we have The Pathless. This is an amazing looking third-person open-world adventure game about the journey of a huntress and her eagle as they are trying to rid their world of manifestations of darkness. Next up, we had a word from the creator of Spelunky and finally saw some extensive gameplay footage for Spelunky 2. The developers made sure that what fans loved about the previous game will still be present, but with new additions that expand and add variation to the experience. Then we had a very interesting game, often called a clone of Breath of the Wild, called Genshin Impact. This game is developed by the great guys at MiHoYo, the creators of Honkai Impact. It is an open-world RPG with an extremely lavish art style that is sure to satisfy any anime lover. It is set in the magical world of Teyvat, where the players come as a traveler of unknown origin searching for their lost sibling. Aeon Must Die is another anime-inspired game that was demonstrated at the show. It is a beat-em-up with an innovative game system that constantly keeps you thinking and pushes you to be creative with how you approach every encounter. In another short trailer, it was announced that the Star Wars VR series called Vader Immortal is coming to the PlayStation VR as well. Then we saw Awe. It is the second DLC expansion for the hit game Control from Remedy Entertainment. Details on the content of the DLC are shady and full of speculations. From in-game documentation, it is suggested that Control shares the same universe as Remedy's previous mystery game, Alan Wake, as he is mentioned in several documents. So, people are speculating that this DLC will revolve around him. Then there is Hood, Outlaws and Legends. It is an ambitious new take on the PvPvE genre, where the game is set in a dark medieval world where the people are oppressed by their rulers and the rich. And in this world, rival gangs of outlaws and rebels are competing against each other to execute heists and take riches and power from the ruling caste. In this game, two teams of outlaws will be racing each other to storm fortified NPC castles and various other locations and steal the treasures that lie within. Last but not least, we had a deeper look at Godfall, a combat-focused looter slasher developed by Counterplay Games. The game is set in a high fantasy world which is split into elemental realms: earth, water, air, and then the Fire Nation attack. You play as a Valorian knight, a godlike warrior able to wear valor plates, which are special armor sets that change the way your character plays. Your goal is to challenge a mad god that awaits you at the end of the game. The developers explicitly stated that all the loot in the game is unlocked only through gameplay, and that all content will be available in the game from the beginning, no microtransactions and no waiting for content drops. The philosophy behind the combat, as the developers had stated, is to be aggressive and control the battlefield. The game is intended to be fluid and reward the player for prioritizing offense over defense. And this is it for this week. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more content like this. This was Alex, and I'll see you next time.